You got a haircut.
I did get a haircut this time. Last time you said I got a haircut, and I didn't. This time, it was actually out of time sequence. You accidentally went back in time and asked me if I had a haircut before I managed to get one.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Or maybe I was just premonitional.
That's yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
You were premonitional.
Premonitional, yeah.
Or
maybe I just encouraged you to get a haircut by calling it out.
Could be. So how are you? That's a very cool glass or mug.
It's not really. It's it's actually not really. It looks like it's like some kind of like design or like a sign of the some alien race on the back or on the bottom. But it looks like it might be one of those things where it changes depending on the temperature or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's not. It's an old Radio mug and the logo is completely disintegrated at this point.
Oh.
And now, yeah. It was what I had.
It almost looks like you left it in the wash with a ballpoint pen.
I think this is what happens when you put a mug in the dishwasher when it probably says somewhere "do not dishwash" or something like that.
Dishwasher safe.
Yeah. But who has? I mean, come on, like.
I don't know why anybody creates any kind of anything like a mug or a plate or whatever that is not both microwave safe and dishwasher safe. That is just irresponsible.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's wrong with people?
I don't know, man. So we had we got new bowls and stuff not too long ago because the ones that were before that, they claimed they were microwave safe, and when they're not microwave safe, it's hard to say like how does that manifest itself? Like, do you put it in the microwave and does it blow up? No, okay, that's definitely not microwave safe. But also but you can get that kind that does not sort of shrug off the gamma radiation or whatever, and absorbs it like massively, so that when you heat up something heat up some soup or some pasta or something like that in a bowl, and you grab the bowl and the bowl is 11 million degrees and the pasta is still cold in the middle. Yeah, that's why we had to get rid of them, because that was the kind we had.
Shouldn't they build like fallout shelters out of that stuff? Like whatever that material is, like that's.
Because I mean, it like jumped in front of the radiation like a friggin' Secret Service agent and took all of it and protected the food.
Right. So if you were the food.
Yeah, you're still cold and you didn't get radiated.
Not as much.
But you're also getting eaten, which is your point. So.
No.
I don't know. Does food want to get eaten? That's kind of a weird existential
question. I don't think
question.
Food wants anything. I think that's like an anthropomorphization of.
If it did.
That's a good question. That's a really
to fulfill its purpose. Or
I do wonder about.
Rebel?
I do wonder about this, like, especially for the whole vegetarian or vegan thing, like because they have no qualms with eating plants.
Right.
But plants are living things. They're not necessarily sentient in the way that we think of that, but
no, they haven't developed sitcoms
or have.
Or parachute pants or whatever.
But I do wonder, I do think about this because just in the big scheme of things, we still are saying that our lives are more important than the plants.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
I would agree with that.
we're going to eat them to live.
Right.
And apples and oranges and things. And so... but... The plants... I mean, the plants aren't there to be eaten. The plants are there to live.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean.
I mean, in terms of life independently, like, life forms independently seek to live. I mean, they're biologically, like, designed to survive.
Right.
Right. And to procreate. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. The life of a plant is not complex.
Right. And even when you get into like animals, it's kind of like that's still fundamentally the purpose is like survive and procreate.
Right. Wake up, don't
protect
die,
your procreation,
make more me,
and
go back to
protect the
sleep.
results of your procreation. Right. Like that's the right. Yeah. Right. Make more me. I like that. I love that. Making more me since before there was time.
Sorry, making more me. We'll be back at 5 o'clock.
So it just makes you think like, okay, like that bread that's in there is made up of all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
None of which really ever was intended for me to eat it.
We can get off on a sidetrack here too about like who the heck first figured out bread.
Oh, still doesn't even get me started. It's magic.
I know.
It's magic. It's like beer,
I can understand
magic.
like figuring out meat. You know that. I get that.
Hey, look, that thing's walking down the road. Let's. Right.
I'm hungry.
Sure this happened before roads.
That thing looks like something that would be that I could eat and make me not hungry anymore. And then, ew, it's all bloody and kind of gross. But hey, this fire thing seems to affect it. Right? You know, it's very rudimentary.
Hey, you know who has? What's that thing that Phil has? It's like it like caused a lot of pain when my arm.
Yes, it's
like,
orangey and
grabbed
kind
onto
of bright.
my arm, and now they can't use it anymore.
Orange bright.
I wonder what would happen if we threw that cow, because that's what I'm going to call it. I name you cow. And
cavemen first thing they ate was a cow, because cows were the saber-toothed cow.
You have to think actually probably what happened was the cow either a bunch of kids like lit a cow on fire just as a prank, or a cow is
pranks are timeless,
or a cow is dumb enough to just like walk into a fire, right?
Possibly.
Or a field was set afire by a bunch of kids again, and then lit up the cows. Anyway, at some point during that, it smelled really good.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. As soon as you either accidentally or purposely for prank reasons set a cow on fire,
you're like, oh,
that sucks being that cow. Well, it's loud too.
Let's call that barbecue.
Now that smells good. Is that the cow? Oh, wow.
Yeah, at some point you're like, oh, that doesn't smell. And then you're, oh, no, that smells good.
Hungrier.
And then you're like, oh, no, that doesn't smell good. So somewhere in the middle is the right amount.
Yeah. Like I noticed there was a section there. It wasn't very long. About 5 minutes when the cow smelled good. And then it was not so good before and real bad later.
The thing is, I'm sure there's some anthropologic works out there that actually address this very issue, like how we believe that man may have discovered cooking.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it seems like you have to discover, like with bread, as Carl Sagan says, when you are going to make an apple pie from scratch, you have to first invent the universe.
Does he say that?
He did actually. Yeah, it was in Cosmos. And I get it, right? It's okay, yeah, I got you. Kind of like with that, if you're making bread, it seems like you have to have invented some things first that don't appear to have any purpose until you've invented another thing with that thing, like flour. Like, how did you invent flour? Mm-hmm. If you weren't sure that the flour was going to also make bread or pancakes or whatever the heck it was.
What business did you have having flour?
Right. Did you like, oh, weird. It made it, this corn got dried out, and when I ground it with a rock.
But why did they grind it with
powder.
a rock?
Right. It's just kind of weird. I just accidentally ground it with a rock, and it made this white powder. And the powder tasted like, well, it didn't really taste like anything. So I think that's stupid. Why didn't they just completely give up at that point? They're like, oh, no, that wheat, mushed it, rock, made powder. Powder tastes like crap. Well,
wheat tastes like crap too. You're just sitting around eating wheat. Does anybody really do that? Like, oh.
Well, I don't know. They maybe.
Wheat. I mean,
like this grass
I don't know.
has
Now I want to know.
nuts.
I'm really resisting the temptation to
to Google
pull
it
this up. Yeah, I
Like,
this
who
is
was the
happening
first
later.
bread person?
I'll be watching some PBS later, I'm sure, or
Thag
Nova.
the baker.
Yeah, that's right.
He later got thagamized.
It's a good question. Well, how did we get to? What were we talking? Oh, we were talking about the plants.
Yeah,
And wanting to be
plants,
eaten,
and
like,
do they have a will to become food?
Well, no, they don't have a will, but they have a program.
Yeah, certainly. They're a running subroutine. This is all a simulation.
Well, I mean, if by simulation, I mean, people really resist that idea, like, oh, it's not a simulation. What are you talking about? And I think if you think of it like, oh, we are a simulation running in like some computer, a thing that we think of as a computer, well, then, yeah, probably not. But if you think of a simulation as like a universe, like if we could actually create a universe somehow in, let's say, a laboratory, and then, create all the things that we know to exist within our universe in that universe, well, we would, I think, all accept that okay, we are simulating a universe, right? But for the things inside that universe, it's not a simulation.
Right. That's kind of been the thing, right? Like, I'm in this book club, and we read a book called The Simulation Hypothesis, which is about exactly that. And like, I will say that I don't necessarily think we're in. Yeah, well, I got invited into that.
That's all right. No worries.
Oh, yeah, you got all the time to read the books. You can't watch television shows. What are you talking about?
This is true.
Thanks for the invite. Listen to you. Who's been going to all these great restaurants? But anyway. So anyway, but I'd always heard like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking and these guys talk about the theory of us being in a simulation, and I always was like, wow, that's wacky, that's crazy out there. But then after reading this book, while I don't necessarily think we are in a simulation, the idea that we might be doesn't seem that nuts anymore. And mainly it's because of time. And by that, I mean, if you take the Big Bang as the time zero, and then whatever, the heat death of the universe or the big crunch or whatever is at the other end of this as time lasts, where we are is probably way, way, way closer to time zero than the other side, right? And, or at least hopefully, right? But looking at like VR and stuff like that, I mean, we both have Oculuses, and it's impressive. Like now, it's easy to see us progressing to a point where we would be able to create a simulation that a person would not be able to distinguish from reality.
Yeah.
And I mean, not like next year or anything, like maybe 500 years down the road. Now think about the amount of time on that timeline where we have that technology versus the amount of time on that timeline when we do not. There is a vastly greater amount of time in the possible time of the universe where that technology exists. And and that makes it way more probable that we actually exist in that time and are in a simulation of a time before that time. There's way more time, that where we have the technology than where we don't. And the more I thought about it, I was like, I kind of get it now. I kind of see why, and you've got this other stuff too. Like if anybody has ever taken physics, about Planck time and Planck space. And Planck time is the smallest observable period of time. Like you can't have a half a Planck. You cannot observe a piece, a section of time or a duration of time that is smaller than Planck time. Now it's extremely fast. It's, pop. No, it's faster than that.
That's fast.
But that gives us an idea that there's kind of a clock cycle to the universe. And just like that, Planck space is the same thing. The smallest observable distance is one, I guess it's Planck or a Planckometer or something like that. But does not get smaller than that. So that's
I kind of reject that though. Because in this, I mean, I accept in the sense of saying it's observable
mathematically, but physically.
Yeah, but in terms of physics, because you have Newtonian physics and then you have quantum physics, right? So you have this idea that there's this observable, knowable, like the physics of the universe that we experience at the Newtonian level, and then there's that subatomic, crazy, weird,
and this is way beyond subatomic.
Yeah. But I think we still have this. I think there's still anytime we say, I think as humans, that you can't get any smaller.
Well,
it's like, well,
this
wait
however,
500 years. I don't know, but that's the thing. It's like, I think it's at some point we're like, oh, that thing we thought couldn't get any smaller, we couldn't subdivide, we couldn't blah blah blah. It's like,
well, I think it goes beyond just the idea.
It's a theoretical
we need a bigger
notion.
Microscope. I think it's just that physics, like anything beyond that, physics completely breaks down.
Yes.
And it cannot possibly hold isness, like an existence.
Well, but I think,
making words up now.
But I do think that for everything that we have learned as humans, we should be able to recognize that, just like the vast amount of time ahead of us, sort of thing. Like, I tend to believe that, like, most of the things to know are way unknown.
Sure. Yeah.
Like we have only just scratched the bit of surface of, like, an understanding of actually, like, how things really work and what's really going on and what's really out there. And so, like, and probably won't even be humans that ever come to full understanding of.
Well, maybe.
But there's a limit. Even our own brains are going to have a limit to our ability to. We know that through. Think about like we can't actually. I mean, how many years did we go without realizing that all sorts of energy was passing right through us? Some of which was damaging, some of which was just very passive, some of which could be harnessed and used in a way for us to communicate and to do other things, and to microwave food. And
that how that one was discovered, right? The guy, the microwave technician, was working on something that turned on while he had a chocolate bar in his pocket.
No, I didn't know that.
And when he got back, like, he noticed the chocolate bar had melted.
Oh, so it was like, giving off, like, it was the
right. And then later on, I don't know who
that can't
designed
be good for the rest of the things hanging out around the
thing, but
machine.
It's like those the grids that you look at your food through the microwave thing. How it's interesting that there's nothing special about that grid. It's just the holes are just small enough that the microwave radiation is too big to get through it.
Yeah.
It's so weird that it's just like. It's like a cage.
I still stay away from it. I still tell the kids, don't get near that. Don't look in there.
Lick it. Come on,
like,
lick it.
Don't tap on the glass at the aquarium.
Don't tap on the glass. You can scare the popcorn.
But I feel like, and that doesn't mean, that's not to discount the usefulness of, like, theoretical physics or applied physics or anything, right? Like that. But I think that it's okay. I think we have to accept this enters into the realm of philosophy too. Like, I think it's for me, I just tend to accept that there's a certain amount that we will probably never know, never understand, because we as human beings, even in our ability to conceive of things that we have never yet experienced, have never experienced, and create tools to actually detect things that we've only, like, hypothesized and stuff. Even with all of that capability, that most things to be known probably will never be known by us, but that's okay, because we still have to operate within the world that we can actually perceive and dream up and whatever. And it's sort of like the law. Like if you get into this conversation about, like, well, do people, like in criminal law, one of the most important things you have to be able to prove is that is the mens rea, that the person had the intent in their mind to do the thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, that all also like depends upon the belief that people have free will to do something or to not do something. And that's where it's that question of free will and the question of like, was the person in the right mind, quote unquote, so to speak, when something happened. And that's where like the certain defenses arise as it relates to, was the person, under the influence of something? Were they psychologically, in a bad place, sort of thing? But if you dig even further down, because if we're saying like, oh, well, there's certain things that can cause, whether it's chemical or whether it's, somebody has epilepsy or somebody has a mental illness of some sort, there's all these other underlying things that can cause people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, right? That makes it not their fault, or at least it's a mitigating factor. But if you scratch below that or dig below that, you get to the question of, well, why do we do anything?
Yeah.
And then it's the question of like, well, we have this sort of genetic predisposition for how we process stuff in our brains. And then we have our experiences up to this point in our lives. And those things mixed together in a little blender that we call our brain is how we end up doing things. But we don't really have any. I mean, if you run the clock all the way back, run the tape all the way back to the beginning of that, we don't really ever have any. We don't really have any control over those things. It's just the world begins to happen to us. We begin to experience the world in a very passive way, and then we begin to act within the world. But once we begin to act within the world, we're acting based on our programming, and it gets to this really crazy world, like land of like, well, do we actually have any free will, right? It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
because for human beings, for us to have society, for us to have society functioning as we need it to, we just have to even pretend like, well, yes, we do have free will, because otherwise, would you have chaos?
But in the realm of like physics and theoretical physics and things like that, we still run into constants, like, right? We still, like, the speed of light is still 186,000 miles per second. And we are not going to go faster than that in real space. Now, we may find ways to circumvent that by kind of cheating the rules, but if we stay in real space-time and try to go as fast as we can, we will never get to 186,001 miles per second.
Based on everything we know to be true today, yes, that would be a true statement. But
through all the observable phenomena right now, and it does not appear that there is any room for ambiguity there.
Right, but how long have we had that understanding of but how long have we really had that understanding of how fast light travels, and then the developing of the understanding of like how the limits of our ability to travel that fast? 200 years?
I think less than 200 years.
When was right? So in the history of mankind, that's like a blip.
Well, granted.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just we can't. We just don't know anything, Mark. It's like that's
true.
We're just a bunch of dumb butts, and we just.
Okay. But I think there are reasons. I think that there are different reasons we believe this than the reasons that we believe some of the things that end up being just kind of our ignorance, like phlogiston and all of these other things.
What's
from
phlogiston?
the past. Phlogiston was this. It's hilarious.
That sounds like a nutraceutical or something.
It's it was a substance, but I mean it's fictitious. But the science of, and I really couldn't tell you what the era was. I took a course called the Philosophy of Science back in college, and this is when we learned about that. And it was a substance that had negative mass, supposedly. And the reason they believed that it exists was that when you took wood and you burned it, the resultant material was actually heavier than it was when it's before you burned it. And now we know the reason for that is that the chemical reactions make it bond with atoms from the air and things like that, and it carbonizes it or whatever. And that's why. But they thought that it was that the wood was infused or imbued with this substance that they referred to as phlogiston, PHLOGESTON, I think. And that it had a negative mass, and that the fire was the phlogiston being expelled from the
it had a negative mass.
Right. And that's why once it was out of the wood was heavier.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, total,
I mean, I can see why somebody would think that. Because
the math didn't add up.
Maybe that's the equivalent. Maybe that's that age's equivalent of dark matter for us.
That's what I think too. You're right. Yeah. Dark matter is just an accounting compensation. Right. Is it really a thing? Is it not? Not really. It's
got to be something.
I always think about back in high school. I was like, I'm gonna definitely balance my checkbook. I'm gonna be responsible. And I went and I got Quicken from Walmart, right? And I would put it in there, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be responsible with my money. And then when my bank statement came in, and inevitably there's some check I didn't write down, or 5 checks I didn't write down, or I wrote down 2 checks and I actually have run out of checks and I have to reorder them, but somehow I just have the 2. But the point is that when I would reconcile my checking account, it would be like, okay, there's $36 here that is not accounted for. Do you want us to enter this charge of $36 to make this balance out?
Oh.
And at the time, I was like,
no,
that's cheating. Like a bad idea.
We need to chase this to the ground, man.
Even me at that point was like, that doesn't seem right. But I kind of feel like dark matter and dark energy is that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the galaxy has this much mass in it. We know because of the behavior of the galaxy and the way that it behaves with other galaxies and things like that. But we can only account for about a third of that. So maybe there's dark matter that we can't see, and that's what it is, And so, yeah, it's something like that, I'm sure.
I remember having this argument
at least with that we know that there's ambiguity. The dark matter is a stopgap measure to make things balance out before we actually discover the real thing. I think the speed of light is fairly concrete, at least so far. And like I said, only in real time and space. I mean, if we figure out warp engines or hyperspace, then okay.
I'm not gonna. I mean, it's all theoretical at this point, anyway. So, but I remember having this.
Infinite mass is a lot of mass.
I'm gonna call it argument because I think I need to know more than I knew to actually be able to argue. But I mocked a math teacher once at some point. I think maybe it was middle school.
In middle school?
Yeah. Because
I wish I could have seen that.
It was like a little bit. I said, okay, so it was probably algebra 1 or something, and they were introducing imaginary numbers.
I don't think X means nothing.
Well, they're introducing imaginary numbers, and I remember like immediately saying like, I raised my hand like, wait. And I said, so you mean to tell me that like we couldn't make something work mathematically? So we just created imaginary numbers, this concept of imaginary, so that the math would work. You're like, yes. I'm like, how am I the only person who has a problem with it? Like, and of course, he was not going to get into the like how the creation of imaginary numbers or why it existed. Which he should have probably.
Maybe I don't know if you're in
maybe if he even knew.
And it didn't sound like you were open to new ideas.
No, but I was like, this is kind of nuts. Like now you want me to like continue on my like math like when it's all like the foundation of this is going to be based upon some just like I was like imaginary numbers. There we go.
Yeah, and it should come as a surprise to no one that I also had a problem with imaginary numbers when I first learned about them. But I was going to be Blaise friggin' Pascal and come up with the third skew of the number line that is not a line. It's actually a triangle, and that there is a half positive line that is there instead of imaginary numbers, and that the entire infinity of that spur of the number line exists in the 0 point. that it collapses in and of itself and it goes into
This is your. Why
sort of
didn't
a
you write this up?
tesseract.
You should have written this
I
up.
was in 8th grade.
Dude,
And then I was like, oh, whatever, let's play Mario.
maybe that's the whole reason you're in the simulation, is to come up
Could
with
be.
that.
That's when I got sucked into the simulation. Is when I
See?
did that. I was like, I got sucked into my blue book or whatever. And now here I am. But hey, I live close to Disney.
With a new
World, so it's
haircut.
worked out.
Yeah, that's
With
good.
a new haircut. Yeah. Or do I? It's Schrodinger's haircut. So the hair is real up to a certain point, and then it becomes theoretical after that.
It's
Like
the
my
future.
hairline.
It's the,
My hairline
it's all
right now is theoretical.
Oh my goodness, that's fun.
So yeah, if I was
maybe
thinking
like
that
a
I
study
started
guide.
with a slight headache, I certainly have one now.
You started with a headache.
Yeah, I've been battling a weird, like a tension headache all day. I don't know what. The deal
Oh,
is.
that's not good. Well,
Is that
I'm not
right
going to
here,
help
back here
that.
in the-
That's for sure.
Well, it's one of those days. I mean, we talk about aging so much on this show, but it seems like it's very much in the forefront of our minds, having been the ones that are aging. But you have those days, where you're like, today's going to be a painful day. Today's just a day where things are going to hurt.
Oh.
Just,
Well, that's like every day
it's
for
like
me.
You're stiff too much,
Yeah.
and like apparently, I guess you slept wrong or something like that. Maybe
I don't
and,
understand that concept. Right now, I mean, I use that phrase all the time, but like,
not like sleeping incorrectly, but I mean like I goofed up. I need to go back and do it again. Just you managed to turn over, and your shoulder was like jacked up, and you were asleep, so you didn't notice it, and so you stayed that way for 4 hours. But now the rest of the day is like,
yeah.
is my skeleton off to the side or something? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is
One of those
bothersome because there's something, like if you have a headache like that, there is something causing it.
True. Yeah.
So, and I didn't have it yesterday,
Right.
and I have it today,
Right.
and I won't have it tomorrow probably. So what is it about? What happened between yesterday
yeah.
and now that gave me this headache? That I need to know, because part of it me believes that I can reverse the effects if I can figure
Right.
out what caused it, right?
Or certainly prevent them. Yeah.
I want to prevent it, right? Exactly. But at the same time, I mean, I do believe it's possible. I do also wonder sometimes, like the body is just, I mean, it's a machine, a very sophisticated machine but
Squishy machine.
unlike machines that we conceive of, it's a machine that is being, it's essentially a whole bunch of independent systems and mechanisms and cells within those systems that have a job.
Yeah.
Is their job, do our job, right? And they are completely unaware, at least most of them, of the existence of the other systems.
Or that they are part of a machine.
That they're part of, like, there's no sentient, right. I mean,
we're
they may
all
be
in this
affected by
together,
other parts, like, oh, they get a signal, like, I know when I get this signal, I do this thing, like chemically, electrically, whatever. But they don't know, like, oh, wait, this is part of the problem. Like, oh, wait, we're getting reports that there's a headache of something, so we need to, like, readjust this thing, right? Like,
Right.
there's no the only system in our body that will will think about that is our brain, right? And not even our entire brain, because part of our brain is actually causing the freaking problem.
Yeah, I know.
That's the thing. Like, why, man?
It's like the whole thing about how pain is the body alerting the brain that there's a problem. Well, one of the things that I do, like I'm watching For All Mankind, right? And so whenever something starts going wrong, the master alarm goes off, and then lights that show what actually is going wrong are also going off, but it's going meep, 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 meep. And then the astronaut will go up and hit the master alarm button, and it'll shut it up.
Yes.
Right? It's like, okay, I get it, acknowledge it,
Yeah.
I'm working
Because in
on
the
it, I
hospital
don't
too,
need
right?
the thing
Like,
going off.
Right. Yep.
Why can't I do that with my brain? It's like if I stub my toe my brain goes, we got a problem in the toe area.
It's no longer being stubbed. It's okay.
Right. And so I'm aware of it. Why can I not acknowledge the problem, hit the master alarm button, and make the pain stop? I'm aware now of the problem. I have acknowledged it. I am working on it. I no longer need the alarm to go off.
Yes. Yes.
I really wish there was one of those things.
Same with when you burn your hand on something.
Thank you.
I'm no longer touching the fire. But you know what? We do have that. It's called Tylenol.
It's not built in. It's an aftermarket upgrade.
Which is that's the thing. They're all aftermarket upgrades, and I don't even understand. And we don't even really truly understand how Tylenol works. We just know that it does.
Right. Yeah.
Tylenol's
I'm content with that. As long as it works, I'm fine.
Are you though? Doesn't that bother you?
Not really.
It's like anesthesia. We're just going to put them to sleep. And we understand we understand how it works in terms of what it does to the brain in terms of the I forget the name of the waves that it creates across the brain and that basically shuts down awareness.
Some Greek letter, I'm sure.
Without shutting down, your well, it does shut down some functions because that's why you need to have a ventilator and intubated and all that stuff, right? But
what is it?
It's not
hippocampus. It's
it's a little.
I watch
Cranium
Command.
It's a bundle of nerves back here that controls breathing.
It's the little robot guy.
The little automated. What are they called?
What is that?
It's not a lot of. It's a tiny little bundle of nerves.
Autonomic nervous
right
system.
Here. It sits there. At the sort of. You know where that little gap is in your skull, back in the bottom, the base of your skull. There's a little notch.
That's
where it is.
And
that's where everything. That's the regulator cells that that regulate your breathing. They don't regulate your heart. The heart's version of those cells is actually in the heart. But your breathing, all your other autonomous functions up there.
Until you think about it. Until you think about breathing, and then suddenly you have to do it on purpose. Otherwise,
because they are getting inputs from other
weird
things. It's super weird.
Because that is an odd thing that you mentioned that, and I guess it makes sense that the autonomous cells that control the beating of the heart are in the heart and not the brain. Because even though your breathing is regulated in an automatic fashion, you can change your breathing if you want. You can't really change your heart if you want, unless you hack the system and run real fast or something. Yeah. But you can't be I'm gonna beat my heart to the beat of this Kool and the Gang song. You can't do that. It's
you can put yourself not directly. You can. You indirectly can. You can put yourself into a situation that will change your
beat.
Or you can take beta blockers. You can affect it
like
that
I said,
way.
You can hack the system and make things happen. You can shoot yourself in the heart and make it not beat. I mean, but I don't know that's what I'm talking about.
But that essentially is what we do. Okay, so it's so funny because internally we also have this, even within the brain, that is meant to basically overcome. We have this ability to overcome a lot of the stuff that would just happen, elements of our body.
Stuff that would just happen.
Breathing, for example. We can hold our breath. Yeah. We can also do things our brain allows us to also do things like eat different foods.
A burning cow.
I'm gonna eat a burning cow, or I'm gonna eat a mushed up corn or something. I'm gonna ground up corn or something, right? And then we know the effects that those things have, right? Mm-hmm. But then we'll still do the things that we know are bad.
Yeah.
Because there's the part of our brain that actually has been conditioned to want that anyway.
Yeah.
And so it makes you realize, not only do I have different systems in my body that are affected by one another, but kind of really unaware and indifferent because they don't have a consciousness themselves. But even within our own brain, we have an indifference to the whole system, to the other part of the brain. It's that stuff drives me crazy. It actually does drive some people crazy. But it's I don't know, man. I think that it makes that question of why did somebody grind the corn up and turn it into flour. Super interesting to me. Like even because we don't even like what would possess somebody now today to do something like that? It had to be
to experiment to that level. You have absolutely no reason to believe that what you're doing is going to lead to anything.
I mean, either it has to either be extreme boredom or extreme like survival mode.
Yeah, some desperation and things.
Something.
Probably. Because I mean, right? As over the lockdown, as most middle-aged white dudes did, I screwed around with sourdough. I don't know why that was such a friggin' thing. I was doing it. I didn't know that other people were doing it. Another person in the complex, my friend Mark, his wife was doing that, and she was like, "Hey, I'm starting a starter." I was like, "Oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. I'll get in on that." And then, but the thing you have to go through to get the wild yeast in this starter is a long process that you have to do deliberately.
No, okay, wait. So I mean, talk about the starter. It's a starter yeast
Okay, so
are you getting the starter from? Can you create the starter, or do you have to get the starter from?
You can do both. If you're not able to get your own starter started, for lack of a better word, then you can get a small portion of somebody else's starter and then build yours off of that.
I guess that's how I thought it was always. That's how it...
No, you can generate your own. You can be the genesis of your own starter if you want. And basically what you have to do is, everybody's got their own opinion on this, but it's actually like a high protein flour, like a bread flour or a whole wheat maybe. And you do just a 1-to-1 ratio of that and water, and you mix it up. You don't have to mix up a lot, right? It's like 20 grams of one and 20 grams of the other, or 10 grams of one, 10 grams of the other. And I don't even remember. I think I did 50 and 50 or something like that, but you don't even have to do that much. But and then you let it sit, and then the next day you pull a little bit off of that and then put in 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water, and mix it up, and then you let it sit. And you just keep it out, and you keep the top to where it's kind of open. Mm-hmm. Now, people, again, opinion is divided on this, that people say that the passing yeast in the air will be drawn to this stuff.
Drawn or randomly land?
I think drawn, because that's food, right? Food for the
I don't think anything
yeast,
is drawn. Right? I think it's
but,
not like the yeast is like the Valkyrie,
got the thing. Not that it's pulling it from like down the street, but like if it's passing by and it's 7 inches away from the stuff.
There's so much.
Hey, there's food over there.
There's so much fungus in the air, though. I think you'd probably just like.
Well, the thing is, though, is that once the yeast, but the point is that the other opinion is that there is dormant yeast in the flour naturally, and that sounds a bit more.
That's more likely.
To me.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a little bit of both, because it definitely is the fact that you will get a different tasting sourdough
depending on where
based
you are.
on your where you are.
Yeah.
And like that's why San Francisco sour bread is so popular, is that particular strain of wild yeast or whatever is particularly yummy. But point is, though, you have to go through this process of feeding this starter probably about 10 days in a row before this really gets bubbly and yeasty and able to be used in a bread recipe. So like I always thought, like, how the heck did they get yeast before, you could go down to the store and get packets of it? And this is obviously how you do that. But again, it's such a purposeful process that takes a long ass time. Who did that on accident and figured out, whoa, this stuff is getting bubbly?
See, that I
bet
think
you can make bread with
okay,
that.
so that makes more, to me, that actually makes more sense. It's actually, it makes a ton more sense to think that there was some flour sitting around that got some water in it, like rain or something.
Maybe.
That just sits around for a while, and eventually, like, somebody notices, like, oh wait, it's like bubbling. right? And then and maybe they taste
But
that
who
and it's
looks at
different.
the bubbly junk that's been sitting out in the rain and goes, "That looks tasty"?
Well, it depends. See, I think it goes back to why did they have the flour to begin with? Like, what were they doing with it to begin with?
How do you make flour? Because it seems like you have to make flour in order to get the yeast.
But you need the yeast to have the leavened bread, right?
Right. But
so
you need the yeast to make the flour useful.
But without the yeast, you can still have can you have unleavened bread without the yeast?
You can,
but
so
aren't you then making? Isn't that like a bit of pita is? Or
it
like
still seems like there's stuff like baking
like
powder
a tortilla
and stuff involved.
Of some sort, like see now I feel like we gotta know that we gotta watch some.
Because I mean, when you make bread, I mean it is remarkably simple. I mean it's basically you have flour, water, starter, salt. And that's it. That's all it takes. And
it's also interesting to know that when the bread is finished baking, it is. Like, that is the one moment in its life where it is without any mold spores. Because like it would have been baked off. Like any mold spores, they would have been dead, right?
But almost immediately.
Virtually immediately, it begins to gather mold spores that are just like always, so then that makes, I think that lends credence to the belief that there is just like always this naturally occurring. There's just yeast, just like there's mold. Like there's always stuff in the air.
And that's fine.
Oh, it is fine. And
it freaks you out if you think about it too long, but just don't think about it.
Well, so for Mother's Day, Michelle, did I tell you this? Michelle got this.
I think so.
Alex gave Michelle this little like countertop garden thing. It's called called Eden. And
I think she posted something about that on Facebook.
It's really cool. And it came with it has like these little pods that you put in. You can the one that he got her was all basil. Nice. But you can get like different things, herbs, you can do flowers, you can do whatever. And then it looks like it's kind of like a little basket, but like metal looking. And for the pods that go in it, like a dozen or so. And then it looks like it has a handle, like a metal handle that goes up and above, but that's not. It's actually where the LED lights are. And then it lights it from that. And then you put the water in. The water goes in the bottom, I guess, and it tells you when, like the app, and also there's a little light on there will tell you like when it needs water and so forth.
That's cool.
Right. Then Michelle once it was like a sufficient size and we could prune it. She made the caprese salad thing, like the buffalo mozzarella and the
tomatoes,
and she had it all fixed up. She had it all out, and she'd sprinkled the balsamic vinaigrette all over it. And I was like, oh, that's good. I love that. And of course, me being Jason, I then ask, did you rinse the basil off before you did the? And she says, no. Why would I do that? Like it didn't come from the store. It didn't come from
pesticides and stuff.
Right. There's nothing to rinse off. I'm like, oh, come on. I said, it's okay. Let's just go with me here. If you had a cookie and you said like this cookie, like it's not going to get stale. It's not going to mold. It's a special kind of cookie. Okay. And the cookie was sitting on the counter for 3 weeks. Would you still eat that cookie? Or would you say, like, that cookie's been sitting around a while?
If it's a chocolate chip cookie,
Then I pointed out, like, how do you think dust forms on things? Does dust naturally exist in the universe? No. It comes from us and from the dogs and from the stuff and the mold that's already like flying around in the air. That creates molded bread and stuff. All of that has been landing on the basil for the past 3 weeks. That's why you rinse it off. And then I proceeded to eat it. But you know what? Then I got a headache. And I swear, I was like, this is because we didn't rinse the basil. I know it. I know
Being married to you must be a treat.
And then it gets better. Because then after all this, 2 or 3 days later, we have it again. And I said, did you rinse it this time? She says, no. But she didn't say it like, and I remember I said to her, so at this point, like, I'm not sure whether you did it to spite me, like you thought about it and then you were like, I'm not gonna do it, or that you did it like you thought about it and you're like, I disagree with him, and so I'm just not going to do it. But you weren't going to tell me about that, or you just didn't think about it again because I'm not having any. I'm not having any impact on the situation. In any of these, I didn't feel good about it, but I still ate it. And then I got a headache again. So then it made me think, like, is it the non-washing, or is there something in this that's actually giving me a headache? Like, is it the balsamic vinaigrette? Is it the mozzarella? I don't know. Is it the basil? Is it just me getting all worked up about it?
I have my opinion as to which of those that is. But you may want to consult your doctor.